Hey, this is Kate. I'm Willie Faye. Welcome to my channel, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to block. Now this pattern was originally constructed at 27 by 17 across, and I've measured it and it has now shrunk to 26 inches. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. Now this is 100% cotton. It's a DK weight, and I've stuck it in the rinse and spin cycle. A lot of people say just to immerse it in cold water, and that works pretty good for, with certain fabrics, but I like with my patterns a lot of times to go ahead and run them through the spin cycle, because that ensures that the fringes and things like that, all the stitches are going to stay intact. If it can survive a spin cycle, you're doing pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, once I've gotten it's wet now because I've pulled it out of the spin cycle, and I'm going to let it air dry as I want it. So I've got these, let me get this box open. Okay, these pins that you use for blocking, and these are going to go in, but I'm going to have to measure it as I go. Now I've already established that this is 17 inches across, as it should be, so it seems to have shrunk long ways and not short way. So we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to go ahead and just pin that down on this side, knowing that it's the right size, and we're going to go ahead after it's pinned again and measure it again. Now I want this top to be even, so I'm going to go ahead and put pins in along the top to make sure that it's even. It's going to be a little difficult to actually measure because of the fringe that I put on there. We know that the fringe is staying, but I can just come across here and go, that is 2, and measures at 2 3/4 right here. That measures, and when I'm going along this edge right here, okay, that measures at 2 3/4, and so I want this to measure at 2 3/4. It does, so I'll go ahead and put the pin in there because it's going to dry this way. Okay, so I want to make sure that it's actually going to dry as it should. Now that's measuring at 3, so what I'm going to do is just kind of pull this up a tad, not much, because 1/4 of an inch is not a lot. Let me go ahead and measure that one more time. And we are measuring at 2 3/4. Do you want to do that all the way up on there? Now I'm measuring from this edge right here on this to the edge of the fabric, and that is measuring a little bit on the short side, so I'm going to just pull that back a tad, just a tad. I know I've already stuck it in there, and measure it again. Remember, there's not a lot of difference between 1/4 of an inch, you know, when you're moving these around. You don't have to move them a whole lot to get your 1/4 of an inch difference. Okay, so I've got to secure it all the way across, and now what I do is I come across and I make sure that that measures 17. It should measure 17. If not, you need to readjust those, which I've had to do actually on mine, to make sure that they measure right. Now you want this to be 27, and as we witnessed, it has shrunk an inch in the length. So what we're going to have to do is come down here, take this, we're going to measure from here to here, and I'm actually going to start it on the 1. So that's about approximately 1.25 inches from this edge to this one. So I'm going to come back over to here, and I'm going to put this at 1.25 inches, and I'm going to make sure that it measures right there. I'm going to stretch it out a bit. We're going to measure it and make sure that we get the right length, but for now we're just going to secure it down. So we're going to go across here. We want it to be 27 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull this down a little more, all the way down. Okay, I'm going to have to secure it to measure it. And it is measuring at 27 inches. So now what I want to do is make sure that it still says 1.25 inches, and it does. So now I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to put my 1.25 inches on this line here, and I'm going to move this over so that it matches. And then I'm going to come over here, just coming down a bit, put my 1.25 inches right here, and move this over until it touches. And then I'm going to come down here and do the same thing. I want that at 1.25 inches here, and I'll just move this over until it touches. And so then we can come back along here again and do this again in other spots if we want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do it to make sure that it stays perfectly straight along all of the edges. Make sure that it says 1 inch and a quarter here. Just pull that up to it. Notice they're touching now, so that means that's the correct length between this edge and this one. So I do that all the way down, and then I have to do it on the other side as well. So now I'm just going to come along here and I'm going to measure across here. And when I do it, it needs to measure 17 inches across. So what I'm going to do instead on this side, back around, is I'm going to take this and I'm going to measure it 17 inches. So as you can see from this edge to here, I need to pull this over like that until it's at 17 inches. And now I'm just going to secure that down. To be sure it's right, I'm going to do it one more time, 17, and then I'll come on this side, let me get it where there's not a pin, and of course that's going to have to be moved up a bit, right like that, and I can put a pin in there to guarantee that it's at 17 inches. Now I don't want that line to be curving that way, so you need to kind of make sure you put it in the edge. I did not do that. So I'm going to pull that out real gently, put it in the edge so that we don't pull the line and cause it to become distorted. There's a little white stitch here that goes all the way down. So we want that to be straight and lay straight. So we're going to do that all the way down. Okay, so I've put all the pins in all the way around. I've measured every one of these to make sure that they're 17 inches across. And then I've measured from here, not from the bottom of the fringe, but from this edge where it's been constructed. From there to the top, that's 27 inches. I've measured each edge to be sure it should be perfectly straight when I pull the pins out after it's dried. So this is 100% cotton. When you put it into the washing machine, it will draw up a little bit. This process of laying it out flat, you may not even need pins to do that. I am blocking for a pattern that I'm putting online, so of course it has to be perfectly straight. And if you want to block, this is the appropriate way to do it. Doesn't mean that you can't just lay it out flat to dry though. And if you don't mind a little bit of shrinkage, just say it's a little bigger than you need, you can always just throw it in the dryer, but I wouldn't advise that. I'm afraid that it's going to really distort the dimensions of it or draw it up. So you can lay it out flat to dry. You don't have to put all the pins in, but for a really straight, nicely defined product, you are going to want to block it in this manner. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you the next time. I have a lot of great tutorials coming your way.